Hey third graders, this is Miss Fiddler. I'm here to teach you guys your math lesson for the day. As usual, we're going to start off with some warm-up problems. So we have a couple multiplication problems here, as well as a geometry question and one story problem. So as usual, please pause your video and answer these questions, and we'll go over the answers at the end like we usually do. All right. So yesterday with Mrs. Avey, you guys spent a lot of time practicing some different riddles that have to do with, it looked like you guys were using some of these riddles with Mrs. Avey. We're going to continue thinking about those riddles, but instead of you solving riddles today you are going to be the author of the riddles. So before we get started, I want to quick review some of the different vocabulary of the different attributes that we have learned so far this year that you might want to keep in mind. Because what you're going to be doing, I'll just give you a little preview, is you are going to be using one of these quadrilaterals that we were using yesterday, and you're going to be choosing one, and you are going to be creating some hints to try to get your teachers to guess which quadrilateral you are focusing on. So just like the riddles you did with Mrs. Avey, you need to have 4 steps, and each step needs to become a little bit more specific. So I'm going to show you an example one today of how I'm going to make my riddle, and then you guys will be practicing on your own. So let's do a quick review, like I was saying, of some different words that are describing the different characteristics, the different attributes of some of these quadrilaterals. So I want you to think for a second, and I'm going to come up with a list, and I want you guys to see if you came up with the same ones that I am. So let's see. I know when we're talking about attributes, one of the things we talk a lot about are the angles on a shape. So that might mean there's obtuse angles. There might be acute angles. I'm spelling that. I spell things wrong a lot with you guys, don't I? Acute and right angles, right? We could talk about, maybe sometimes our shapes have parallel sides. Sometimes they have congruent sides. We know that they're closed figures. That's a word that we use a lot. We know that they all have straight lines. We know that there's symmetry. We know that shapes can have, let's see what else, perpendicular lines. Sorry, my handwriting's a little messy. I'm kind of writing on a vertical surface that's really close to me right now. Let's see, is there anything else that I am missing? We could talk about, I think we covered some of the big ones. So these are the different things that you're going to want to keep in mind as we start creating your own riddle. So when you're looking at your different quadrilateral that you choose, the one that you choose, you're going to want to think to yourself, what are some of the attributes of that quadrilateral? So just really quick, I'm going to show you this slide. So remember, and you can always go back to your yellow vocabulary packet and the same information will be in there. So remember, to be a quadrilateral, all the shape needs to have is 4 sides. To be a trapezoid, it has to be a quadrilateral with exactly 1 pair of parallel sides. If it has more than that, not a trapezoid. If there's no parallel sides, not a trapezoid. It has to have 1 pair. A parallelogram is a quadrilateral, so remember that means 4 sides, with 2 pairs of parallel sides opposite each other. So that means that this side is parallel to that side. Okay, so they're opposite each other, they're across from each other. Remember, parallel lines mean they never touch. They will always stay the same distance. They don't get closer together, they don't get further apart. A rectangle is a parallelogram, so all of this over here, plus 4 right angles. A rhombus is a parallelogram, so all of this, plus it has to have 4 congruent sides. Remember, that means all 4 sides are the same length. That's the only extra requirement. To be a square, you have to be a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides, just like a rhombus, and 4 right angles, just like a rectangle. So squares require a lot of different pieces, different attributes. Okay, so to create my riddle, I looked over all the different quadrilaterals and I chose which one I wanted to do. And I decided I like rectangle B. So I'm going to write my riddle about rectangle B. Now, before I just start jumping in and start writing my clues, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to list all the different attributes that I can about this specific rectangle. So I'm going to eventually need to come up with 4 clues about it, but I want to come up with more than 4 attributes so that I have something to choose from. So let's see. I notice it has 4 sides. It has 2 pairs of parallel lines. I see 4 right angles. I see the top and bottom lines are congruent. And so are the 2 sides, the left and the right are congruent to each other. Excuse me. I'm noticing there are 4 vertices. I am noticing that there are 2 lines of symmetry. Let's see, am I missing anything? I've mentioned the sides. If I go back to this page, I noticed something about angles. I noticed there's parallel sides. I noticed congruent sides. Oh, did I say it was a closed figure? I'll have to go check. I mentioned the symmetry. Oh, I could say something about the perpendicular lines. I'm going to say there's 4 perpendicular lines. Alrighty, and it's a closed figure. I'm sorry, my handwriting's bad once again. Okay, so now that I've written out my different attributes, I'm going to be choosing 4 of them to become my riddle clues. Now, I don't want to choose just any 4, like the 4 that I think are the coolest, and put them in any order that I want. I need to be really thoughtful, and I need to try to list my attributes from the most vague, meaning that it could kind of apply to a lot of different shapes, to the most specific. So for example, I said that my shape has 4 sides. Well, if I look at all of these, they all have 4 sides. So that's a very vague attribute, because if my first clue is my shape has 4 sides, is that going to allow the person solving my riddle to narrow it down at all? Not at all. They'll still have all 15 choices up there to choose from. So I don't know if I want to start with that one, because it's not going to help the person solving this at all. All right, so I think I'm going to cross that one off, because I don't think 4 sides is really a good one for this, because all of the shapes have 4 sides. Now, 2 pairs of parallel lines. That applies to some of my shapes. Like I'm noticing rectangle A has 2 pairs. Square A has 2 pairs. This has 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of the shapes have 2 pairs of parallel lines. So that's about half of them. So that would narrow down a little bit, but it's not super specific. I really like that clue. I'm going to circle that one, because I'm going to put that in my riddle somewhere. 4 right angles. Well, that's getting a little bit more specific, because rectangles and squares are the only shapes with, that's a rhombus, with 4 right angles. So that seems to be even more specific than 2 pairs of parallel lines. I think I'm going to use that one as well. But you know what? This one maybe should be clue. I'm going to just make a little notes for myself. Maybe 1 or 2. And maybe this should be like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3. Because it's a little bit more specific. If I start off with that one, they're going to narrow it down a lot quicker. Let's see, I said something about the congruent lines. That might be good. Maybe in my clues, I don't say something exactly like the top and bottom are congruent. because that would help with a little bit, but maybe I'll say something about the congruent line. So I'm going to circle that one. Let's see, 4 vertices. That once again, that's very, very vague. I don't think that would help anybody, so I'm not going to use that one. I'm going to cross that one off. Let's see, I have 2 lines of symmetry, 4 perpendicular lines, and a closed figure. I think I might go with, maybe I'll do something with the 2 lines of symmetry. I'll circle that one. Okay, I've picked my 4 attributes that I'm going to focus on, and now I need to decide what order am I going to put them in. Let's see, which one is the most vague out of the ones that I did? You know what? I think I'm going to start with 2 pairs of parallel lines. So I'm actually going to write my riddle on this slide to maybe make it a little bit clearer for you guys. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to say clue number 1. Clue number 1. There are 2 pairs of parallel sides. Let's see. Based on what I got. So I used that one up. I think I might do the 4 right angles. So my clue number 2, whoops, it has 4 right angles. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second with my clues. I'm going to actually just figure out if in fact my clues are starting to make sense and if they're too specific or too vague. So I'm going to cross off the ones that don't fit. So it says my first clue was 2 pairs of parallel sides. I'm going to cross off everything that does not have 2 pairs of parallel sides. I'm going to get rid of this one, this one, this one, this one. Nope, nope, and nope. Okay, so I got rid of, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 of them, or 7 of them. All right, I think that's pretty good. All right, my next one says it has 4 right angles. So then I'm going to cross off everything that does not have 4 right angles. So I'm going to cross off this one, and this one, and this one. So right now I'm left with a rectangle A, square B, rectangle B, and square C. I think I'm doing pretty well so far. I've been a little specific, but not too specific. So I've been able to eliminate some of them. All right, let's see. What should I do for my third clue? So I was going to do something about congruent sides. Now, if I look at the shapes I have left, I notice that my squares, the 3 squares, have 4 congruent sides, and the rectangles do not have any congruent sides. So you know what? I think I'm going to say that my shape does not have 4 congruent sides. Or I might say all sides are not congruent, meaning that anything with 4 congruent sides has to be crossed off. How am I doing? All right, I'm down to my 2 rectangles. So now here's where it gets tricky, because I need the person who's solving this to guess which rectangle I am going to do. I can't just say it's a rectangle because I specifically chose rectangle B right there. But I still have rectangle A in the mix. So I need to look and decide what are some things that are different about these 2 rectangles. And what I'm noticing, now I know on the other page I said something about maybe using symmetry, lines of symmetry, but rectangle A also has 2 lines of symmetry, just like rectangle B. So I don't think that'd be a good clue for me to use. So I'm actually going to write something that I didn't write down on my other slide. I think the way to tell the difference between rectangle A and rectangle B is that B is actually taller. The height of it is taller than rectangle A. So I'm going to put down that the height is longer than the width, meaning that it's taller than it is wide. Rectangle A is wider than it is tall. So then my person solving this would be able to say, oh wait, this one's wider. So what am I left with? Rectangle B. All right. So I have now written my riddle. And your task today, or one of your tasks, I will say you have a lot today, is to try to figure out a riddle of your own. Now, on this slide right here, I wrote down some different things to keep in mind. What I would do is I would pause the video to make sure that you are following all these things. So the first thing you're going to want to do, like it says, is choose a quadrilateral from your cards. And you're going to write as many observations about that as you can, just like I did about my rectangle. You can circle any observations that are obvious giveaways and use them for last. So anything like mine, like with the no, all the sides were not congruent with what I had. So like if you choose a square, you're not going to want to say in your first clue that all the sides are congruent, because then that would just give you squares and rhombuses. You might want to use that a little bit later. Okay. Number 4, use your observations to draft a riddle with 4 clues. That means to write it down. That's like a rough draft, like what we do in writing. Number 5, test your riddle to see if it works. So you yourself, just like I did, make sure that as I was going through and I was crossing all of these off, make sure that your riddle works. Make any adjustments that you need. You might notice, oh wait, that didn't quite work. I got to fix something. And then the last thing you're going to do, part of your assignment, is you're going to type your riddle on your math slide for today. And then your teacher is going to see if they can try and guess which quadrilateral you chose. All right. And then we'll let you know what our guesses are, and you'll have to tell us if we're right or not. All right. If you have any questions, make sure you're typing that into the comment section or emailing your teacher to ask for some help. All right. All right, before we finish up, let's quick go back and go over the questions I asked you earlier. So pull that out. All right, so our first problem was 4 times 6. 4 times 6 is, let me get my pen back, 24. 7 times 8 is 56. 12 times 5. Now here's one of those higher number ones. So some of you might have memorized your 12 facts, or you could count by 5s 12 times. Or another thing we could do is we could split up that 12 by its place values. So one thing I like to do is split that 12 up into 10 and 2. And then multiply each section by 5. So 10 times 5 and 2 times 5. And 10 times 5 is 50, and 2 times 5 is 10. And then I add 50 plus 10 is 60. 12 times 5 is 60. All right, list the attributes of this shape. So hopefully you were able to look at it and know that it is indeed a trapezoid. And what do we know about trapezoids? We know that there are 4 sides. We know that there are 4 angles. Now remember, it doesn't matter what the angles are, because some trapezoids might have right angles. This trapezoid happens to have 2 acute angles, 2 acutes down here and 2 obtuse up there. So, but it might have right angles. So it doesn't matter what kind of angles, it just has to have 4 of them. Most important thing about a trapezoid is there's 1 pair of parallel lines. All right, and our story problem. Mrs. Hines had 8 bins of recorders to hand out to students. Each bin contained 15 recorders in it. How many recorders does Mrs. Hines have to hand out to the students? So looking at this, I know that this is a multiplication problem, mainly because I see that word each. And I know when the word each is there, it's probably either multiplication or division, because I'm talking about the items in a group. Now looking at this, it doesn't look like I'm splitting anything up, so I must be putting the groups together. So she has 8 bins and they each have 15 recorders. I'm going to solve 8 times 15. Now, just like we did up here with our 12 times 5, I could split that 15 up maybe into 10 and 5. And do 10 times 8 and 5 times 8. 10 times 8 is 80, and 5 times 8 is 40. And then I can add those together, and 80 plus 40 is 120. And don't forget to label your answer. So 120 recorders. All right, guys, good luck with your riddles. I'm excited to try to solve them. See you later.